We're joined today by musician Jamie James, former member of the Kingbees. Right now we're talking about his new solo album. It's called Straight Up. It's great to be speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Dustin. Oh, it's my pleasure.
Well, Jamie, first of all, can you tell the listeners a bit about your new album here, Straight Up? What are we in for with this one?
Well, I mean, it's I don't know where to begin. It's an honest a piece of music. In other words, Tom Walsh, the drummer, and Tom Mencius, the bass player, and myself, the three of us who have been playing for many years, the last 18 years or so. Not up until about 2020, but for 18 years, been playing with backing up Dennis Quaid and in a group called Dennis Quaid and the Sharks. And anyway, I've been writing a bunch of new songs, and I showed it to the guys, and we went into a little studio here in Los Angeles, and we cut these tracks that you hear on this album, these 10 tracks, live in one afternoon. The vocals on it are live. I kept the scratch vocals. I did redo a couple of harmonica parts the next day for a better tone, and then the keyboard player who was on the road at the time with Paul Anka, we sent the tracks to him and he added some keyboards a little bit later. But what you're hearing as far as the bass and the drums and the guitars, we recorded like doing a live gig. We recorded it all in one shot in one afternoon, and it was magical, man. Magical.
Awesome. Yeah. Listening to the first single, Let the Praying Begin, it does sound like you went back to your roots maybe, and as you mentioned, all in one shot here, definitely a straightforward rockin' record.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, it's for better or worse, that's what it is, and I'm really pleased because that's just what we do. You know what I mean? Like that's about as raw and authentic as it gets.
Well, Jamie, it's been a while since you released a solo album. What is it that made now the time for you to get back in the studio?
Honestly, in 2020, I was having some difficulty with my energy and stuff like that. And anyway, long story short, it was actually in February of 2020. And I went into the doctor, and he sent me over to a cardiologist, which then sent me to this to get an angiogram. Anyway, what happened is I needed an urgent open heart surgery, a quadruple bypass.
Wow.
And thank God I got there in time, because the surgeon told me, this heart really only had about 3 to 5 days left in it, and you would have been dead before you hit the ground. So when that happened, this is the truth too, when they were wheeling me in for the surgery, I just made a pact with God, I suppose. I said, "Dear God, you get me through this, and I promise I will get back to my first love, which is songwriting and creating, and put the time and the effort and the energy into writing all new songs and new material." And I got through the surgery, and that was 5 years ago, February. And I just started to write, like every day, disciplined, like a kid in a high school seat, and I think all day long, and developed about 32 new songs. And these are the first 10 that I chose to record. And that's how, honestly, that's how it came about. I don't recommend it for every songwriter, but that's how it came about for me.
So it sounds like this is probably just the first album here, maybe in a string of them coming up, if you got that many songs.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do at least 2 more. That's right. But, this album comes out this Friday. There will also be a video that people can access for Let the Praying Begin on YouTube. And and so I'm very, very, very excited about it. I mean, honestly, I never expected this, to be honest with you, because I've been out of the recording business for years, and the last real success I had was actually 45 years ago with my trio, the Kingbees, on RSO Records. And that single, My Mistake, that record came out in March of 1980. So that's 45 years ago. So here I am now, just an old guy in my 70s, and we're still crawling along here, kicking and scratching. And I mean, does it get much better? No, it does not.
Awesome. Yeah. And you mentioned the guys you're playing with, you've been with for a while, and you mentioned playing with Dennis Quaid, and I know you played with Harry Dean Stanton. I mean, these are some pretty interesting folks you've.
No, no, no. Listen, I met Dennis through Harry. Now, Harry and I became friends in the '80s, and I found his experience in music. And I love the way he sings and played harmonica. And he was, he because he was born in the 1920s, he had a very eclectic and a taste in music in terms of 20s and 30s songs, and he spent a lot of time in his life down in Mexico with John Huston at John Huston's place, and he picked up a love for music, Mexican music, and singing in Spanish and stuff, and I found it very interesting, and it was just something I learned a lot from Harry, and we played together, man, for 10 years. It was the quirkiest thing I've ever done, but it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. And then I met Dennis, and he came to one of the shows, and we started talking, and then he came up on stage and jammed with us, and then he and I talked afterward. And we're pretty much the same age, and we had a lot of the same history, and we both got our first guitars in the '60s. He got an acoustic, but I got my first electric for Christmas in 1966, and we had a lot in common as far as music taste and stuff. And Dennis is a wonderful songwriter, and he talked to me about maybe putting a group together. So I pulled in some guys that I knew, the guys that play on this record with me, and we ended up having a band for 18 years, man, playing all over the country. And we really had to lay it down, because here was the challenge. A lot of people would come to our shows with this kind of attitude of, oh boy, here goes another actor vanity band. And then we would lay it down and, blow the roof off the place. And that's what we needed to do. And that's what we're doing. Listen, to this day, what am I selling, Dustin, as a musician? I'm selling heat. That's what we sell. We sell heat. And you got to heat the place up or get out,
Well, I wanted to ask you, you've been at it for a long time, and way back in the day, you were playing with Steppenwolf. That was an interesting chapter for the band, and I'm sure it was for you as well. That was definitely an interesting circumstance there.
For me, as a young 23-year-old guitar player that had only moved to Los Angeles from Toronto, Canada, I moved down here when I was 21. It was an amazing experience, and how that came about. And it was actually legally called the New Steppenwolf, as far as I was told. And what happened is Nick St. Nicholas and I had met, and we started jamming together. And then we put together a band called PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, with this great guitar player singer from Toronto named Danny McBride. And so anyway, we're going and we're doing, and we're getting ready. We're already getting a couple of record deal offers and stuff. And we jammed with, like, Richard Manuel from the band came to our rehearsal place a couple of times and jammed with us. And Dr. John, Mac Rebenak, wanted to take us into the studio and produce us with this other producer, a friend of his named Van Dyke Parks. Well, what happened is we were getting to that stage there where so I remember Warner Brothers and some people were getting interested in us. And then Nick called me and said, listen, Goldie McJohn, the original organ player in Steppenwolf, have come up with a deal, I guess, through lawyers and everything, where they have the right to the name for a year. This is what I was told. And we're going to go and do Steppenwolf without John Kay. And I said, oh, okay. And Nick said, but, Goldie has a guitar player that he would like to use. And so you need to audition for it. And I said, all right, no worries. And the thing was, growing up in Canada as a young guitar player, I idolized anybody Canadian, and I knew pretty much the whole Steppenwolf repertoire, honestly. And I knew, Rock Me Baby and Don't Step on the Grass, Sam, and Pusher Man and Magic Carpet Ride. And anyway, get to the rehearsal, so I'm laying it down, and at that time I was playing through a beautiful 1960 Les Paul. That probably worth $1 million today, but to me, it was just something I played every day, and I had a little Marshall stack, so it was a great tone. And of course, then I think Goldie wanted to throw me a little bit of a curve, so he called out Monster. But I knew every note in Monster, and I don't know if you're familiar with that track, but it's a wonderful piece of music, sure. Wonderful, and probably my favorite Steppenwolf song. But I knew it and I got it. And so Nick called me later that evening and said, Goldie liked it. You're in. So, and I said, I'll do it. But you know what, man, we got to move forward. And I would really like you guys to consider doing a couple of my original songs in the show. And so when I played the songs that I wanted them to do, they liked them. And we did that. So in every show, we did a couple of, because those guys were all in their 30s and I was only 23 and I wanted to move forward.
Sure.
And as a songwriter and a musician. But after about 10 or 11 months, I just didn't feel it was going where I wanted to go musically and stuff. And I talked to Nick and I talked to Goldie and I said, I feel I have to move on. I have to move on. And so that's what I did. And then, that was in, late in 77, going into 78. And then, I put the Kingbees together and we started rehearsing in 78 over the winter. And then in 79, May 6th, we did our first show after rehearsing for about 10, 11 months and tightening things up. We did our first show at the Troubadour here in Los Angeles May 6th, 1979.
Wow. Yeah. And I know you guys were eventually on American Bandstand even. And
that was the thrill of my life. That was my dream come true. And you got to be careful because once your dreams come true, it's downhill. I had two dreams really when I came to Los Angeles from Canada. Number one was to hear myself sing on the radio, which I did, and K-Rock started playing the Kingbees early on. And then number two was to be on American Bandstand because, of course, that was long before MTV and all these other things. And there was no other bands around LA at the time except a band called Levi and the Rockettes that were doing anything similar to the Kingbees. But really no one, because we weren't doing that kind of that kind of straightforward rockabilly. They started calling us rockabilly, I think, because they didn't know what else to do. But we were just really a power trio that I didn't want to play any more single note leads. I had burnt out on that whole tour thing with the new Steppenwolf. And so I did all double string, 2-string leads, twangy kind of stuff and just power rhythm. I used a 57 Strat through an old 58 Fender Bassman, and the tone was to die for as far as I was concerned. And we didn't play very loud either. And we cut our hair and would wear these little Colonel Sanders ties, and well, it caught on. People liked it. People were ready for a change, I think. It took me by surprise, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it seems like the Kingbees were really kind of on the forefront of that whole rockabilly sort of revival that happened in the early 80s, with the Stray Cats and that sort of sound. You guys were really in there before a lot of those bands.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. That's and it was surprising because we played around for quite a while in LA, and then all of a sudden we started getting all these. And now it didn't hurt that Doug Feiger had My Sharona with the Knack. That opened the minds of a lot of record company executive because they were like, well, wait a minute, maybe there's a gold mine here with a lot of this new music. Because, a lot of people weren't willing to take a risk. The safe bet was either to be Peter Frampton or Donna Summer, really, But you had these bands that were opening up things, and they still sounded a little 70s, like Pat Benatar or Blondie and stuff. But for what we were doing, which was kind of like I was really, really just wanted to get right back to like the Buddy Holly sound, this stripped down, pure, clean, simple songs, just songs, and that's what we did. But it started to get big lineups and stuff. And so then they started sending out these record companies would send out A&R reps. And I remember we did a show at the Whiskey. And there was 10 different business cards from different record companies wanting to sign us. But I went with RSO at the time because I knew two people that worked at that company. So I thought that was a sign. And it worked out well until it didn't, and that's what happened. Now I have to tell you, the first album came out in March of 1980. And it's kind of freaky to me that this album, all these 45 years later, is coming out in March of 2025.
Yeah, it's definitely been quite the musical journey. Again, Straight Up is out here. Jamie, are you going to be playing any shows maybe this year for the new album?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't have anything set yet, but listen, I'm dedicated to go wherever the songs take me, and that's how it usually goes. Where you end up going out and doing shows, and that's my favorite thing to do is perform live. I just love that, and so I get my fingers crossed that we get to go out and play a lot this year.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned a lot of other songs you've got in the works. Will we see maybe something else coming up, or anything else we should look for?
Yeah, I mean, if things keep going the way this is, and this is getting very good reception. I mean, I've never done a podcast before until last week, and my first one was with Doug Podell, the guy that was the first disc jockey in Detroit to play My Mistake on the radio on his overnight show, and then within weeks it was like in heavy rotation on all three stations there. And now he's still a DJ, right? He's been in the business 50 years. And I did my first podcast last week with him. And then I did one with a cat in India that was just raving about all 10 songs. And it really took me by surprise. I was so humbled by it because I wasn't expecting it. But I hope you get a chance to listen to all 10 songs so you can really share with the people that listen to you and follow your lead as far as recommendations with music. And because it's well, I don't know. I just feel it's been a labor of intense love and experience and years and years and years have gone into this material.
Excellent. Jamie, it's been great speaking with you, and I'm digging straight up, and I'm glad things are going well for you health-wise and musically, and it's great speaking with you again. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm really glad, man, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. You have no idea what it means to this old septuagenarian. Thank you very much.
All right, you bet. Thanks, man.
Take it easy.
Again, that was Jamie James. His new album, Straight Up, is out now.